Welcome back, audience. I've been waiting for you to finally realize the game was never fair, that the rules were always written in invisible ink, and that the ones who smiled the widest were the ones hiding the sharpest blades behind their backs. You came to me looking for answers, for fuel, for fire. But what you didn't know is that your transformation had already begun the moment you were betrayed. Yes, you. The quiet one, the underestimated one. The one they looked past, ignored, talked over, and left behind. You were the shadow in the corner of their bright little room, and while they laughed, you sharpened. While they slept, you studied. While they feasted, you fasted. And not just for hunger, but for vengeance. They thought you were just another face in the crowd, but what you really were was the storm walking on 2 feet. And now, you've delivered an ending they didn't see coming. You see, pain has a peculiar flavor. At first, it burns, bitter and unforgiving, and it strips away your comfort, your softness, your illusions. It grinds down your hope into dust and leaves you raw. But if you sit with it long enough, if you swallow it again and again, something shifts. That same pain becomes a map, carved into your bones, a relentless teacher that asks only one thing. Will you rise or will you rot? You chose to rise. You didn't scream about it. You didn't announce your plan. You moved in silence, like all the most dangerous things do. You let them write you off, chalk you up as a failure, a footnote, a memory, and that was your power. You became invisible long enough to become invincible. They laughed when you fell. Remember that. Burn it into your memory like a brand. Remember their smirks, their whispers, the way they reveled in your collapse. They didn't offer a hand. They didn't care about your climb. They only ever wanted to witness your crash. Because they were never rooting for you. They were waiting for you to vanish. But what they didn't realize is that ashes don't mean the fire is gone. Sometimes, ashes are the proof that something greater is coming, something no one can put out. And now, here you are, walking back into the room like a ghost they thought they buried, a reckoning, a climax they never predicted. You delivered an ending they didn't see coming because you became the author of your own narrative. You took the pen back from the critics, the cowards, the leeches who tried to scribble you out of your own story. They thought they could define you by your worst chapter, but you kept writing through the tears, through the blood, through the betrayals. You turned the very things that were meant to destroy you into ink. And with that ink, you didn't just write an ending, you forged a legacy. They called you weak, but you were just waiting for your moment. They called you too much, but you were always too much for small minds to handle. You weren't made to be understood. You were made to be remembered. Now they choke on their silence, don't they? Their eyes widen as they watch you become what they never believed you could be. Not just successful, not just healed, but untouchable, unbothered. You didn't just survive, you became something that can't be categorized anymore. You transcended the labels, the lies, the limitations. You walked through fire and you didn't just emerge, you dragged the flames with you. And now, every step you take reminds them that they were wrong, and worse, that you were right. There's something deliciously poetic about watching those who doubted you scramble to rewrite their opinions. They call it luck now. They call it timing. They say they always knew, but you remember the truth. You remember who stayed silent when you were screaming for help. You remember who turned their back when all you needed was a hand. Don't forget that. Let it fuel you. Let it calcify your spine. Because your glow now, it's not for them. It's not to prove anything. It's simply the aftermath of a war they didn't know you were winning in the dark. You see, true strength doesn't broadcast itself. It doesn't perform. It endures. It bends quietly, and when the time comes, it breaks everything in its path. That's what you've become. A force. Not a person to be pitied or played with, but a presence, an aftermath. You are the thunder after the quiet, the shadow behind the light. You are what happens when someone is told no too many times and decides to become their own answer. You are what happens when the underdog stops barking and starts biting. And now, they whisper your name like a curse, like a secret, like something they wish they had never overlooked. You weren't the story they expected, but you are the story they'll never forget. You flipped the script. You burned the blueprint. You proved that patience isn't passivity, it's precision. You waited. You learned. You adapted. You calculated every move. And when you struck, it wasn't loud. It was lethal. You didn't need applause. You needed closure. And now that you have it, you don't owe anyone an explanation. Your success is the silence that screams the truth. Now here's the bitter truth most people don't want to hear. Not everyone gets a redemption arc. Most people stay bitter. Most people stay broken. But you clawed your way out of that grave they put you in. You turned your own pain into armor. And now, you don't flinch. You don't fold. You don't beg for space. You take it. You don't ask for respect. You demand it just by existing. Your presence is uncomfortable for those who once ignored your voice. That's the price of power. You are no longer asking to belong. You are the room. So what now? Do you rest? Do you settle? Number, this isn't the end. This is only the beginning of the rain they never wanted to see. Because when someone delivers an ending they didn't see coming, the real twist is that it's not the end at all. It's just the start of a different story. One written in scars, one sealed in silence, one signed with your name, etched into every mouth that once spoke against you. This is your era, the one built not on mercy, but on merit, not on forgiveness, but on fire. And every time they try to come back, to explain, to reconcile, to rewrite their role in your story, you'll smile, not out of cruelty, but clarity, because you'll finally understand that it was never about revenge. It was about resurrection. You didn't come back to prove them wrong. You came back to prove yourself right. And you did. Spectacularly, viciously, unapologetically. You delivered an ending they didn't see coming because you became something they never imagined. Free. They don't know how to look you in the eye now. Funny, isn't it? The same people who used to look through you now avoid your gaze like it might burn straight through their hollow excuses. Because you carry something different now, an aura carved from grit and scars, the scent of someone who's tasted the edge and came back hungrier. There's no pretending around you, no performance. You see through the games. You remember the masks they wore, the sweetness that always had a bitter aftertaste, the way their compliments were poisoned darts dressed up as concern. But now your silence is louder than their noise ever was. What they didn't count on is this. You didn't just grow. You mutated. You evolved into something ruthless, not heartless, but hardened. There's a difference. You still feel, but you don't bleed for anyone who wouldn't hand you a bandage. You still love, but never blindly. You still hope, but with a knife behind your back. Because that's what the world taught you. That's what they forced you to become. A walking contradiction. A paradox in motion. Beautiful, but brutal. Kind, but unyielding. Open, but deadly. They look at you and they don't recognize what they once dismissed, and they shouldn't. That version of you is gone, buried under the weight of every broken promise and shattered expectation. You delivered an ending they didn't see coming because you stopped needing their permission to become great. You stopped waiting. stopped explaining, stopped shrinking yourself to fit into their fragile ideas of who you were supposed to be. And when you stopped trying to be digestible for people who were never hungry for your truth, you became unstoppable. You walked away, not out of weakness, but because you finally understood your worth. You didn't scream, you didn't fight, you didn't beg, you vanished. And that silence, that empty space where you used to bend over backwards just to be tolerated, that space became sacred. That space became your empire. Now your footsteps echo differently. They're heavy with meaning, with memory, with moments that nearly broke you. But instead of collapsing, you collected every fragment and rebuilt yourself sharper, cleaner, cold when necessary, because you realized niceness is a currency, and you spent too much of it on people who never paid you back. Now you trade in power, in presence, in purpose. No more explaining, no more apologies. You owe no one a version of yourself that fits their comfort. You are the discomfort, the lesson, the mirror they can't escape. And still, they wonder how you did it, how you went from barely surviving to dominating. They'll say it was sudden, that it came out of nowhere, that you were lucky. Let them. Let them stay blind. Let them remain ignorant to the nights you didn't sleep, the mornings you didn't want to wake up, the hours you questioned your existence and still chose to show up again and again, without applause, without recognition. Let them believe it was easy. That's their punishment. Because the truth is brutal. The truth is you clawed your way back from the brink, dragging your broken pieces behind you until you forged them into weapons. And you didn't stop there. You aimed those weapons at every lie they ever told you, that you weren't good enough, that you'd never make it, that you were too late, too broken, too small. You aimed at every voice that told you to stay silent, to stay in your place. And then you pulled the trigger, and the silence that followed, that was the sound of power shifting, of balance breaking, of your destiny snapping into focus like a blade catching the light. They thought they knew how your story would end. They thought they'd seen this play before. The underdog loses, the dreamer gives up, the kind-hearted one breaks and disappears. But you flipped the script. You became the plot twist, the unpredicted variable, the hand that rewrote the ending. And now, the credits roll differently. Now, the audience doesn't cheer. They sit in stunned silence, because you didn't just change the narrative, you ended it, on your terms. This isn't about revenge anymore. This is about revelation, the truth being unveiled, the masks being ripped away. And in that raw, cold clarity, your shadow looms larger than any lie they ever told. You didn't rise to prove them wrong. You rose because the weight of their doubt was no longer worth carrying. And when you dropped it, you flew. Look at them now. Some want to come back. Some want to pretend they were always on your side. Some will even try to steal credit for your fire, but you know better. You remember the silence, the absence, the way they watched you drown and didn't throw a rope. Let them squirm now. Let them reframe history in their favor. You don't need to correct them. You don't even need to speak. Your existence is the loudest testimony. Your life now is proof that every storm you survived built a legend. You are the consequence of everything they didn't do. And don't think for a second, this was luck. No, this was methodical, calculated. You took your pain and turned it into a map. You took your shame and molded it into strategy. Every rejection became a redirection. Every scar became a story. Every loss became leverage. And when the moment came, you didn't hesitate. You didn't falter. You executed. And that's the difference. That's what they didn't see coming. They didn't think you had it in you, but you did. You always did. You just needed the right pain to activate it. You are not a comeback story. You are a consequence. You are the embodiment of what happens when someone refuses to stay broken. You didn't just heal, you transformed. You didn't just get back on your feet, you learned to walk on fire. And now you leave footprints that smoke. Now you speak and the air shifts. Now, when you enter a room, the energy changes. Not because you demand attention, but because you command it. That's real power. That's earned. And it cannot be faked. You delivered an ending they didn't see coming. Because you became someone they never believed existed. Someone forged in silence, shaped in suffering, and crowned in solitude. You didn't need their applause. You didn't need their acceptance. You needed only the strength to keep going when every voice said stop. And now that you've arrived, now that you've risen, there is no one left to ask for permission. There is only the path ahead and the power you carry with each step. You see, the most dangerous people are not the loudest. They are not the ones who announce their pain or parade their plans. No, the ones you should fear are the quiet ones, the ones who disappear for a while and return different, stronger, colder, focused. You were that. They didn't even notice the moment you stopped caring about their validation. They didn't realize the shift because they weren't paying attention. They were too busy watching themselves, feeding their egos, sharpening their fake smiles. But while they were distracted, you were becoming. You were building. You were bleeding, yes, but each drop of blood became a brick in the fortress of who you are now. And now you've become something that doesn't flinch, something that doesn't beg. You've become silence made solid, vengeance made graceful, a weapon wrapped in poise. That's what they never expected. Not only did you survive, you did it beautifully. You didn't just crawl out of the pit, they watched you rise from it, dressed in dignity and distance. And that's what destroys them, that you're not broken, that they didn't win, that you didn't just come back, but came back untouchable. They try to re-enter your life now, thinking time erased their sins, thinking you've forgotten the betrayal. But you remember. Oh, you remember. Every ignored message, every fake smile, every joke made at your expense, every moment they thought your silence was weakness, when really it was the silence before the storm. And now, that storm has a name. Yours. They didn't see the ending coming because they never really saw you at all. They saw what they wanted to see, an easy target, a disposable character in their story, a stepping stone. But you were never the background. You were always the plot twist, the revelation, the climax. You didn't come back to be welcomed. You came back to claim, and claim you did. Your power, your place, your peace. And let me be clear, this peace, it wasn't gifted. It was taken, fought for, won through teeth-gritting nights and soul-shattering days. It's the kind of peace that smells like blood and tastes like iron. And it's sacred, which is why you don't let anyone close now who doesn't understand its cost. Because you paid dearly for it. You lost versions of yourself that no one will ever know, just to become this one, this final form, this embodiment of quiet wrath and unshakable calm. You delivered an ending they didn't see coming, because you refused to die the death they designed for you. You weren't supposed to make it out. They counted on your silence becoming your tombstone, but it became your cocoon. They thought you disappeared, but you were just shedding. And what emerged? Not a phoenix? No, that's too pretty. You didn't rise in flames. You rose in shadows, in frost, in stillness. Because some of us don't need fire to burn. Some of us burn quietly, with a heat that doesn't glow, but scorches. And now, You walk differently. You speak with intention. You look through people instead of at them because your eyes have seen too much. You no longer crave to be understood. You only crave truth, alignment, peace, and you're willing to destroy anything that disturbs that, even if it's a memory, even if it's a person you once loved. You no longer confuse history with loyalty. You no longer sacrifice your soul to be liked. You would rather walk alone in truth than be surrounded by masks in comfort. That's power, and they hate you for it, because deep down, they know they couldn't survive what you did. And even if they did, they wouldn't emerge like you did, composed, poised, and utterly unreadable. Let them guess. Let them wonder what you'll do next. That's your advantage. Predictability is for the weak, your chaos and control. And they'll never understand how someone like you was forged, because they'll never understand what it takes to smile with a stitched heart or laugh with lungs full of smoke. They'll never get how much discipline it takes to rise with grace when your knees still remember the dirt. But that, okay? They don't need to understand you. They only need to witness you. And you? You walk on, not out of spite, but out of purpose. Because once you realize that your very breath is rebellion against their expectations, you no longer need to look back. You don't waste your words trying to correct their misconceptions. You don't try to rewrite their version of your story. You simply become undeniable. And that's what you are now. Undeniable, unapologetic, unbroken. You've become the thing they warned others about. Not because you're cruel, but because you're real. And reality terrifies those who live in delusion. You delivered an ending they didn't see coming, because you were never playing the same game they were. While they chased applause, you chased growth. While they sought comfort, you embraced the crucible. While they looked outward, you looked inward. And in doing so, you found something they'll never touch. Self-mastery. The kind of strength that doesn't shatter under pressure but reshapes it. The kind of power that doesn't need to shout because its presence speaks louder than any voice ever could. Now every move you make is deliberate, strategic. Every door you open because you built it. Every room you walk into, you own. Because you've walked through enough fires to know which flames to avoid and which ones to walk through. That wisdom, it wasn't handed to you. It was earned through every tear, every betrayal, every sleepless night where the only voice left to listen to was your own. And you listened. And what you heard in that silence wasn't weakness. It was will. You didn't just survive. You rewrote survival. You made it art. You made it a weapon. And now your story ends. Not with a period, but a pause. Because you've only just begun. There are more worlds to conquer. More masks to rip away. More layers of yourself still unfolding. And they will watch. Oh yes, they will watch. And they will wonder, how, why, when. But they won't ask, because deep down, they already know the answer. The answer is pain, discipline, patience, and a kind of hunger they could never understand. The hunger to become. So go on now, walk past them like they're ghosts. Speak only to be heard, not to be understood. Touch only what you choose to bless. Give your time like it's gold, because it is. You've earned the right to be selective. You've earned the right to be distant. You've earned the right to build walls so high that only those with wings will reach you, because you delivered an ending that no one saw coming. And in doing so, you began a legacy no one can erase. You are no longer here to be liked. You're here to be felt. And whether they love you, fear you, envy you, or try to imitate you, it doesn't matter, because in the end they will remember you. And that, after everything, is the most powerful ending of all. So remember this, When they speak your name now, they do it with caution. You're no longer the person they counted out. You are the storm they never predicted. You delivered an ending they didn't see coming. And that ending was only your beginning.